Difficult. Women. Oh, hey.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi there.
Crazy meeting you here.
Oh my gosh. Wasn't it just yesterday that I was physically there? Practically.
Oh, God. I cried just for a couple days after you left.
Oh, it was so nice to be around people. And you specifically.
It was magical. We had such a great time, you guys. You missed out on the party. We partied. We partied hardy.
With a capital P. I hadn't partied like that in a while.
I'm starting a 5-day detox today.
That's great.
I tried to start it after you left, and then I had another party.
More parties.
I had a couple other parties.
Yeah.
Lots of parties. No more partying.
That's great. I've been on my little clean eating phase. It's been going great, except yesterday I got so tired. I was like, why am I so tired? I'm like, oh, right, because my body's used to like functioning off of like hamburgers and pad thai. And now it's like, oh, we have to make fuel out of vegetables? How does that work? You're like, yeah, just shifting gears.
What have you been cooking?
Oh my God, I made a turkey taco salad. Made a lot of it, so I've been eating a lot of that.
That's right. You sent me a glorious, beautiful picture of it.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Nice.
Instead of the sour cream, put a little bit of yogurt, little Greek yogurt. It's
Who
almost
are
the same
you?
thing. I know.
What have you done with Katy Frame?
I know.
Oh wait, we should introduce ourselves.
Oh, that's a great point.
Did we do that?
Sure. I'm Katy.
And I'm Marie.
And this is the Difficult Women Podcast. Just jump right into our diets. It's like this podcast is basically like watching an Instagram account where someone just takes pictures of their food. No, just kidding. We just describe what we eat. That's not true at all.
That'd be a bad podcast. But this is better than that, right?
Oh my God, this is way better than that. We don't talk about food that much. In fact, as we speak, I'm wearing a hamburger French fry shirt. So that's the true nature of us.
Oh, but we had such a glorious time together, you guys. Katy came from Brooklyn to Nashville, and we tried to do it all. We
got pretty close.
We did.
I got to be in a hot tub. Thanks
That's right.
to Marie's friend, she's so lovely to let us.
We did a hot tub, and which was really cool, we sang together finally.
We sang together and played, and we didn't forget everything.
No, I was actually pretty impressed with how much we remembered.
Muscle memory, huh?
Yeah. I feel like I can sing pretty well. It's the playing of my instrument that I've forgotten how to do. Because you would think during a pandemic I would be just rocking out all the time, but no, I didn't really play my instrument very much, which is a shame.
I hear you.
But we're back. The Reformed Whores are back. We're going to be recording our third album next month.
Yeah.
Here in Nashville.
Yeah, that was part of the whole thing, is coming down and making a plan.
Yes.
It wasn't all just fun and games. We worked a little too.
But we also got to see our good friend Jessica Watkins, whose documentary is now out for everyone to see. Please check it out. It's called Specialish. And it's about her walking across America doing stand-up. And it's now on all the platforms that you can watch on.
Yes. And also, if you didn't know, we interviewed her a few weeks back. So you can go back and listen to that interview. And the movie's getting rave reviews. And we give it rave reviews. We really loved it. And I'm gonna go rent it and watch it again.
Yeah.
Right now. Bye. No, just kidding.
Goodbye. Well,
what else is new?
Well, the reason why I'm starting a 5-day cleanse is because this week has been crazy. Okay. You know, the CDC says now we don't even have to wear masks inside if you're vaccinated.
Yeah. I mean,
how do you feel about that? Thoughts on this?
I feel like if I'm with people I know and I know they're vaccinated, I don't feel so bad about that. I'm still, I think maybe because I'm coming from New York, I'm still a little wary if it's like a big crowded place. Might keep my mask on a little. So be sure that even if you're fully like, yeah, no masks, don't shame people for wearing masks. You don't know what their reasons are.
Right. Yes. No. So my friend shouldn't have yelled at the person at the museum. We all had to wear masks in the museum the other day, which of course you need to do. But my friend was like, the CDC says we don't have to. I was like,
no.
follow
You
the
have
rules.
to follow the rules. That's the CDC says you don't have to, but they're leaving it up to all the businesses. So you still have to follow the rules of the business. You don't own that business. They decide what you get. No shirt, no shoes, no service, and no mask. Get the fuck out of here.
Yes. So pay attention to what individual institution is promoting and just follow it.
Yeah. And you know what? Some people were like, well, you didn't believe you were like telling us to believe the CDC, and now you're saying, oh, I'm not really sure. Yeah, but don't you say individual rights? So like if somebody has an individual desire to wear a mask, it does not affect you. So just let them wear their mask.
The hypocrisy is just unbelievable. It's great. It's fine. But you know what I did to kick it off?
Yeah.
I went to a strip club.
Yeah, you did it right.
CDC says no more masks. All right, let's get a pussy in my face. No, well, kind of kidding. Not really. You guys, I went to... I went to my first female strip club. And I want to talk about it because I had never been... I highly encourage people to go because it was so much fun. And I think like my particular experience, I want to talk about it because like the women were so beautiful and so happy to be working. And so it seemed like a nice business to work for. I've just had never been. I'd been to Hunkomania, Atlantic City, which hadn't you been to Hunkomania? It's like male strippers.
Yeah, I've been to Hunkomania and I've been to one strip club in New York that was like, it was only, I think in New York you can only have topless strip clubs too. Like, I don't think you're allowed to do full nudity, or if there is, there's probably some caveat with alcohol or something. But and they were like behind the bar, and they did not look very happy. So I was like, give them more money.
I've heard of pumps in Williamsburg, which I've never been to either. But a ton of our friends would go there all the time, and they always said that's
sad or something, right?
Actually, no, I'm lying. I have been to strip clubs, many strip clubs. I'm just thinking back. Okay, never mind. No, but in Thailand, we went to several, and I don't know if the business was what was going on.
I don't know what those rules are. Yeah.
People didn't seem too happy, but but this was my first real one, full nudity, and it's BYOB. So like, I guess the law in Tennessee and Nashville is that they cannot serve alcohol if there's full nudity. So just showed up with like a freaking cooler ready to party. But what I want to say, the most disturbing thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and I'm going to say it on the pod, and I want to say it, and then we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to move forward with our lives. But I asked, I was talking to the strippers, lovely women, and I asked one of the strippers what's the worst thing a customer has said to her. And she told me that one time she was giving a dance, a man said, get ready, y'all. A man told her that he wished she was his daughter so he could put her on birth control and take her home and fuck her.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. It's really fucked up.
That is the most fucked up thing. I mean,
the levels, the layers of fucked upness.
Yeah. Right. So first, I wanted to say this. If you're listening, don't ever say that to a sex worker.
Or to anybody. Don't ever say that to anybody.
Or to everyone.
That's
yes,
like very
point,
disgusting
point.
thing to say.
Don't have that come out of your mouth. We were having a really nice time and talking to all the ladies and I was kind of joking by asking that kind of question, and we were all divulging all sorts of things, and so it was kind of like, haha, what's the craziest thing somebody said to you? And then when she said that, it was just like, oh my god, human beings are horrible.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Also, think of all the other things that he could have said to her, because he could have said like, hey, I wish you were my girlfriend so I could take you home and fuck you. I wish you were I don't know what, my wife or something. Why am I wish you were just a random woman that I met at a bar. Yeah. Why your daughter? I mean, like, what? How fucked up? And I understand like that kind of stuff can also be like a mental illness, but like, you need to figure that out, because that's so fucking horrifying.
But the amazing thing is this woman that I was talking to, and she told me that, and how like I was there with a friend of mine, and it's like, Oh my God, we were so appalled. But she seemed like such a badass boss bitch to like be able to deflect this shit. But like the amount of stuff that I bet these women have had to put up with specifically like male men who are coming, male customers rather, coming to see that. Like I mad respect. That's all I have to say. Just completely deepest, utmost respect.
I also want to say that I would even say the female customers probably get way out of hand too.
Yeah, and like, actually I think that female customers get more handsy because I think you're told you're not allowed to touch and stuff.
Right.
And I think that people get in there, get drunk, and then feel like they own these people, and
Absolutely.
you don't. So.
Absolutely. And I think you have to understand too that like a strip club or even any sex worker, you don't own them. You're not buying their humanity. You're paying for a service. Like when you get a massage, when you get a massage or you get a haircut, you're not like, you are my bitch now. Like that's a service that they're giving you. So you have to like be respectful. Similar to like, honestly, I feel like sometimes people do the same thing with waiters. It's like, just because someone's serving you their food doesn't mean you own them and you can like get them to do anything. Like there are rules within the establishment in which they're working. So like if they can't give you a side of pickles, it's because they can't give you a side of pickles. It's not because you get anything you want. So I think just people generally have to understand that like these are businesses, you know, and I think that the sex industry in some ways is not very different at all from the restaurant industry, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point.
And also at restaurants, like if the workers are being treated well, then they're really happy, right? And similarly at like a strip club, and it sounds like the strip club you were at takes good care of their ladies, which is awesome.
Well, the girl said she'd worked there 10 years.
That's great.
Just imagine.
That's great.
Like that means that there's a happy little family there. Like there's not quick turnover. Like, I mean, I worked at Island Oyster, and let me tell you, we had a new server every weekend.
Right. Right.
So I don't know. It was just such a positive, wonderful experience. And I just wanted to share it besides that comment. But that woman seemed very confident in herself that to like be able to deflect that bullshit. But just go out and support your local strip club. That's
absolutely.
Also,
but treat everybody like humans because they are humans. You know, don't forget.
Yes. But also, can a girl not get a bush up in there? That's the one thing.
Why don't they should mix it up.
I know. That was my only. I filled out the comment card. Lovely experience. Need more bush.
Yeah.
Just need, because I mean, that, I was like, do you all have the same waxer? Does the waxer come to the club and do it all for you right before you go? Because it was just beautiful. Beautiful what they've done. But I mean, just, you know, options, different things.
As if people like different things and people want different styles, and we should just like have different options there. I'm into that.
Anyway,
maybe that's my next career is a bushy stripper. Is that a good idea?
I mean, yeah,
I can do it all.
That's the thing also like about strippers is they're athletes. Like the way that they climb on that pole and like, you know, it's
incredible.
Just unbelievable.
Well, that's why they have those classes, those stripper classes, because that shit is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
I would, that sounds cool. I would like to go. Maybe next time I come, you can take me.
Yes, let's get. I mean, I've told some girls already that I maybe for my birthday, everyone will fly into Nashville to go there. We'll spend one night in Nashville, then we'll drive to Dollywood.
That sounds great.
It's getting crazy.
Woo!
Oh my god.
Making plans.
Anyway, super horny now.
Oh my god, I believe
it.
I believe it. Just I can imagine.
It's great. The world is open. Anyway, speaking of horny, I think everyone could probably re-up on these items if you feel the same way as us.
Mm-hmm. Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh. Plus, free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com.
And we're back. Changing subjects completely.
Totally shifting gears.
Yep.
So this, I have to say, so we're going to talk about Israel and Palestine, which is something that I'm not that comfortable talking about because it's so complicated that I just want to put out there that like this is going to be a tough one for me.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, I feel like part of it is, I'm not sure I want to talk about it, but I think also we just ignoring it is certainly not, it's not our MO. It's not what we do. We might say things that are not quite right, or no matter what you say, it seems like people get upset on one side or the other. So I think that our goal here is just to unpack a little bit of this because it's impossible to unpack all of it. There's just, the more I like was reading up on it, the more confused I got, and the more there's just so many things happening.
And it has to do a lot with history, and we are not historians also.
Totally.
Major, this is like a huge disclaimer for this, is that we're just trying to understand what is happening. And I think it's very, very important because this is not going away, and it seems that it will be just getting worse. And it's, I think, good for us to understand.
Part of one thing that I'm seeing is like, there's people that are just sort of making claims that are very black and white, like, well, this is just what should happen. And it's like, when you start to really dig into it, you realize like, oh, this is like more complicated. It's not just like, oh, they should just do this and then it'd be over. It's like, no, they've been trying to figure this out for a really long time.
Also, so America, like being like, this is what they should do. Like, it's really none of our. I mean, it's none. It's only our business because we share this planet Earth.
And together. If we can help with like peacekeeping stuff, then that's great.
True.
But I will say, like, let's start talking about what's going on.
Okay, let's get into it. Oh gosh.
So as you probably know right now, and this is changing by the day too. So I don't know where we'll be at. I'm not even sure where we're at as of this morning, but the tensions in Palestine between the Palestinians and Israel have escalated to the point where they're basically back in a war, sending missiles back and forth over into each other's territories and all that. It's gotten real bad. One thing that is happening too, though, is that Israel has a very strong military and a lot of very good military equipment. So they have an ability to sort of stop a lot of the missiles that come over from Hamas, but not all of them. And they also have just really good technology on their end so that they can target targets. And so there has been a very disproportionate amount of Palestinians that are being killed versus the Israelis that are being killed. But that being said, there are people dying on both sides for sure, and being injured and being terrorized. So that's kind of like where we are at this present moment in terms of like just like physically what's happening.
Right. And I think that's very important to say that, again, like Israel has one of the strongest military defenses in the world. So when Palestine is shooting, or the Hamas, that's the Palestine military group, Hamas, them shooting missiles into Israel is not the same as Israel shooting back, because Israel does have some sort of military, like I didn't even know this, but like a dome type way of fighting off missiles. So the comparison of how many have died on the Israel side versus the Palestine side is not equal at all, because Israel is like, it's Trevor Noah does a really good talk about like, he talked about like when a teenager is fighting with a 4-year-old, like when he got in trouble as growing up, like as a teenager fighting with his younger brothers, like a teenager fighting a 4-year-old is not the same thing. So it's kind of that kind of comparison of like, they're just way more well equipped for war. Yeah.
And he says too, like, just to clarify, that he's not trying to infantilize to baby make of the Palestinians. Right. Like he's not saying that they can't take care of themselves and all that. But and then the other issue too is that like you also can't ignore that, like, Hamas is shooting thousands of missiles into Israel. So it's not like they're not throwing forks or something. Right. So like that's also a complicated. If you're living in Israel, you don't want to be shot at either. No. So Israel absolutely has the right to defend themselves. I guess the question is to what degree, but then also like And you know who suffers in all this is the civilians.
The civilians, right. Children.
Many Palestinian children have died. I mean, I think on the first day it was something like 12 or 14. So I can only imagine that number has been going up. And hundreds of Palestinians have died. And hundreds more have been injured. And hundreds of Israeli citizens have also been injured. So it's like, what's happening? Like, why are we at this place? Like, what's going on?
Right.
And again, I do recommend that you listen to Trevor Noah's recap of it, because one thing I liked about what he sort of had to say about it was that he was like, I don't have answers. He's like, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. But his bigger point was like, should the retaliation be as severe as it's been coming out of Israel? And even that, I don't think anyone has a lot of answers to per se. Though there's a recent history where the Israeli government has been sort of like persecuting the Palestinians that are in that area. So already there's like, we're sort of set up for anti-Arab sentiment. And, the one of the things that kind of set off some of the like tensions was that there are Palestinian people living in the area that their families have been living in these apartments for years. I think it was like when Jordan had control over the Palestine-Israel area, there were these like Palestinian refugees, and Jordan was like, hey, we're going to make these buildings for you, and you guys can move in here, and you can like be refugees and safely living here. But then they never like fully signed off on it. So when Jordan like left, there was no like paperwork or no like official anything saying that like, look, these Palestinians own these buildings. So then when the Israeli government was like taking over the area more and more, they were like, yeah, we're just not going to recognize that happened. And there's a lot of that in this story of like, well, we sort of like, we're giving some group this, but then some other groups don't recognize it. So then like, well, then is it or is it not? Who has what? Who gets what? Who deserves what? Like, I don't know. But that being said, like these Palestinian people have been living in these complexes. That's their home. They've been there for like generations. And now some, Jewish landlords are moving in and wanting to like evict them. And that's a whole other thing that makes this so like tricky to like deep dive into. I think why people do kind of avoid the subject is because like we also have to be careful to avoid anti-Semitic sentiments during all this. Right. So it's weird. I will say that one video, I don't know if you saw the video of the woman yelling at the landlord.
Yes.
And he seemed to be
property.
And I think he was an American.
He had a very thick New York accent.
Right. So I think that's
so
another thing.
Well,
that's another thing I think that's happening is that like if you're born Jewish anywhere in the world, the current Israeli government acknowledges that you can become an Israeli citizen. So there's sort of an ownership of this area, whether or not were born there or part of like the history of what's going on there, like, from a generational standpoint, because the idea of Israel is it's like a homeland for Jewish people, like a center for people to be, have a community, have like a homeland. Which just complicates this more because then you have people coming from hurts. Yeah, you have people coming in from Brooklyn then being like, okay, I bought this land because I'm Jewish and I have a right. I'm also an Israeli citizen, so I'm gonna like then kick you off of this because I don't want you to be here. It's like, wait a minute, like whoa. So there's been a lot of like things like that just don't feel right? Like just to like kick people off of their property because you don't want them there because they're not what you want them to be. Now, that being said, that's not every Jewish person in Israel that wants that. So we have to be really careful to like not lump everybody together. Like there are many, 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 many Jewish people that are like, we need to protect the Palestinians. Many, many, many. And they're out there, not rioting, but protesting also, So so just to say like, oh, Jewish people are terrible. It's like, no. That's not what this is about. This is about a select few who are nationalists, really. I mean, we're experiencing this nationalism across the globe right now. We definitely have it in the United States. We talk about it all the time. But there is this sort of like Zion nationalism that's happening, which is part of like what's driving the pushing out of the Palestinians. And what are you going to say?
Oh, no, please continue.
I was just going to say that I also had to kind of look up what is Zionism.
Yes, please.
Because I wasn't 100% sure what that was about. And the idea behind Zionism is it kind of came out of there was a rise in Zionism after World War II so now we're going to go back in history a little bit. After World War I, the British took control over what was Palestine, what was then considered Palestine. And at that time in Europe, there was more and more of an anti-Jewish sentiment rising, as we know, where we landed in World War II. So there was a lot of persecution of Jewish people at that, starting more and more and more. There was then more and more a need or a feeling that there needed to be a place, a homeland where Jewish people could come to and feel like safe and feel like we can build our community in one location, because they didn't have that. It was sort of like Judaism was a religion that was sort of spread out all over the place. And one Jewish leader proposed like that whole, what is now Israel area, because it's like the Holy Land. And like, well, we, in our, religion, we're supposed to go back to the Holy Land. So why don't we just like go back over there? And at the time, British was ruling that land. And they were like, okay. They're just like, sure, why not? But like
the United Nations declared it.
Yes, eventually the United Nations declared it too. But like starting even after by World War I, it was already becoming sort of like like, what are we doing with this land? Like, how are we going to deal with this? And of course, like when you say like, sure, that sounds good, you guys can have that. What you're totally neglecting is that there are people that are already living there.
Right.
And have been living there.
Because there was an Arab majority there with a Jewish minority when they said,
right, where you guys can have
this will be a land for refugees, for Jewish refugees.
Right. Okay. So then World War II happened. And when that happened, they were like, see, we really need this because our population has been decimated. We need a place to rebuild. We need a place that we can call like a unified area. So then there was even more of a push for this, for what they call Zionism, which is the idea that like there needs to be a homeland for Jewish people. So that's all fine and good. Even right now, there are like Zionists that are left wing, and then there's right wing. And the right wing kind of Zion national type people, those are the ones that are like anti-Arab. But there are Zionists that still believe like, no, we do need to have like a Jewish state, but also we should be able to live in harmony with other people, and we want peace. So we want to be able to negotiate. And also we don't want the government to be so religious. The right wing Zionists want the government to be extremely Jewish. And they don't want to like have, not that they don't want peace, but they're like, this is our land, we want it. So like there's conflict upon conflict upon conflict upon conflict in these areas. And then there also was like, before they were like fully established as Israel being like a Jewish state, or before it was Israel, there was a lot of pushback from the Arab majority, which I mean, like, I get, because it's sort of like, wait a minute, what are you going to do? You're going to come in here and just... So they really were pushing to have, when the Jewish refugees were starting to come in from World War II, they were coming in droves. And the Arab community was like telling England, like, hey, you got to start putting limits on how many people can come in here. And so there was like all this negotiation back and forth. And then when the Jewish community was coming in, they were not allowed to buy land. They were not allowed to have property. So it's like been this back and forth for like, and that's just since the 40s. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And this goes back even further. And that land in itself, that's not even, we haven't even mentioned that land itself is holy for all the religions.
Right.
So there has been battles over that space for so long.
And are we talking about Jerusalem specifically, because it is a national? Explain a Jerusalem, because
I mean, this is where I get confused too. this land has been going back and forth and back and forth. There was a time too where like the Gaza Strip was like, they were like, okay, the Palestinians can have that. And then like Egypt came in, and then Egypt was like kind of control. I mean, there's like, and that's part of the other thing is I think that Israeli government is afraid to have Palestine become a free state because they're afraid they're just going to become immediately absorbed by the Arab nations around them. So it won't even be like full freedom. It'll just be like more land for the other Arab nations. And then that's not, as far as Israel is concerned, that's not good for them because those are like their foes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, there's a lot of politics at play here, a lot of government shit.
Well, specifically what Trump did, the embassy, he moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. And I guess that's a power,
and I guess that's a power play in that, like, then it's sort of established. Yeah, if we're saying like we're allies of Israel, then we're establishing more as like allyship within this area that's supposed to be a little bit more. I think it's even was for the Palestinians. I think that territory around Jerusalem is a Palestinian territory, and then the Gaza Strip was Palestinian in the latest, but that could be wrong. Or also that like, but maybe like I think that it would make sense that you need to like leave it open for everybody to come in, but I don't know who's running it. Somebody has to be running it. Right. So I think it was Palestinian run. I could be 100% wrong about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy when like we're talking about like land chunks and like the like territories are changing at every like new signing of a thing, and like, and then what's the solution? I mean, like, and how do we solve this? Was that right or am I wrong?
Well, sorry. So Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and then said that and moved the embassy there. So he took a stance.
But also, like, how crazy is that? Like, that's another thing that I kept finding, and I sort of mentioned this before, but it's like, so then, like, Trump said, oh, this is going to be Israel's capital. But, like, why does Trump get to say that? And, like, the Palestinians are like, wait a minute, we didn't agree to this. So it's like, there's a lot of those things that happen, too, where it's like, at one point, the Palestinians were like, okay, we're claiming independence. This is, like, in the 40s or something. And like Syria and Lebanon and a couple other like countries around them were like, yep, we acknowledge your independence. But then none of Europe recognized it. None of Israel. So it's like, so you can claim it, but then if people aren't in agreement, then what does it mean? Then it's like, we're saying, well, this is ours. And they're saying like, no, it's not. And like that, it just becomes, it honestly, like, not to diminish this at all, but it makes me think of like, when you're in a relationship that's just like never going to work and you start fighting over that one night, you know, where it was like, you did this, no I didn't, yes you did, no I didn't. Now of course that's very like simplified, but it's like if you've ever been in those kinds of arguments with people, there's a sense of like, we will never resolve this because you're coming from your perspective and I'm coming from mine. So it's like, if there's no meeting in the middle with something like that, so it's sort of like, okay, then how do they live in peace? And they've tried to come up with a million ways. One thought was, oh, we'll push out all the Jewish people and have it be an Arab nation. The Arab nation was like, great. Of course, Israel was like, no. And then then they're like, okay, great. We'll push out all the Palestinians and then Israel can have it. And Israel's like, great. And the Palestinians are like, no, of course not. So it's like, then they come up with this two-state solution where there's a million ways in which a two-state solution can work, but the idea was sort of like we'll sort of divide it up so that then Palestine can have its, you know, independence and freedom, and then Israel can have its own state and whatever, but they cannot. And then sometimes they'll put an idea out and one side will be like, I like this one, but the other one's like, no, I don't accept. And then they try to fix it and make it a little bit more accommodating for the other side, and then it's like flip-flops, and it's like, no, I'm not okay with this, because it's like the minutia of this land is important to people. Like it means something. Totally. It's not just like, I mean, some also when you get
when you get religion involved, that's
totally
like,
it's just like,
you cannot, there's no that's what people believe, and good luck talking them out of that.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I feel like I've taken away from all this too is it's like, this is probably going to be a really bad reference, and I need to look up like what is good and bad about this movie. But I saw Lawrence of Arabia a couple years ago for the first time. It's a beautiful movie and it's amazing. But it was like, I didn't realize that the movie was basically about a similar situation in that like it's not in Israel and Palestine. It takes place in, I think, Saudi Arabia. But there's been a lot, like just for eons, there has been disputes over land in these areas. Mm-hmm. And there are, it's not just like Arab people. It's like, no, there are different groups that are different. And at that time, certainly there was different even tribal groups that were at war with each other. So when like, you know, Europe starts coming in after World War II and just being like, okay, we're going to like control this land now. They don't understand the nuance of the relationships that are happening in that territory. So then they're like, well, we'll just split up and like, what's the big deal? And it's like, you don't know what's fucking going on here, white man, get the fuck out of here. And you see that same thing happen in colonialized places across the world. It happens in Africa too, where people, they come in and there's like a balance that's trying to be maintained without the colonialists. And then people, the imperialists come in and then they're like, yeah, we'll just do this. And it's like, no, now you've like not that the boat wasn't already rocked, but like there was no full understanding, I think, or a deeper understanding that like this is more complicated than the English people thought. And so they were trying to solve these problems. And even like down to the like saying like, oh yeah, we'll just like make, you know, we'll make Palestine a Jewish state and that's a place for them to go. It's like, well, what is the other nuanced things happening underneath that, you know? But that being said, should there be a place, you know, after World War II, should there have been a place for the Jewish...
For refugees.
Exactly. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, we need something. But it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I fear what's happening is that Israel did declare a ground invasion this week.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So that makes it war. That makes it actual like war.
So, yeah.
But I guess that's like it's like, what would I like to see if I was the king of the world?
What would you do, King Katy?
You know, and like, oh my God, like I don't know really, but like just on like it'd be really nice if we lived in a world where Palestinians could have some like independence. There could be like some area for them, I guess, right? Freedom is what they're saying that they need. And like certainly at minimum, just not to be so persecuted and murdered, you know, and like, no, I shouldn't say murdered. Well, yeah, murdered sort of by like the Israeli government, not necessarily the Israeli people, but the Israeli government that has its own, you know, there was somebody even saying that like Netanyahu, I think it's not Netanyahu, who would want this to kind of go on as long as possible because it puts off like the next election. So there's like all these things, like then that's just like a power move, you know what I mean? But I guess I want to see a world in which like we could all just live together in harmony and not, and that people could look at people and go, we're all the same. We're all like, we're all just little humans trying to do our best. So that like, because the thing that just like tortures me about all this is it's like there's all this like political shit and governmental shit. And those people that say like, yeah, let's bomb them. They're usually like protected in their little ivory tower and they don't have to feel the repercussions of those bombs necessarily. Right. It's these like citizens who I can imagine many citizens just want peace so they can live their lives and raise their families and not be living in terror.
My instinct is to be like, stay out of it. It has nothing to do with America. Like, come on, like stay in your lane type of thing. But that's not how this works. I'll never forget, you know, in high school learning about the Third Reich and the rise of the Third Reich and stuff. And like, you know, if the US had been able to get involved earlier, how many millions of people, how many millions of lives we could have saved type of thing. And it is a little bit like, it is none of our business. However, it is on this planet and that people are dying.
Right.
And that's where it's,
definitely been like another part of the story that I forgot to mention is that like in terms of leading up to this conflict that we're seeing right now, the Ramadan, we've been in Ramadan. So like the Palestinians have been celebrating Ramadan, and there is like this one, I don't know if you call it a temple or you like
it's a mosque.
Yes, one mosque where they were doing their religious celebrations, and so already there was tension because of COVID. The Israeli government was like, well, you can only have this many people in the mosque at one time. Because of safety precautions. So they were already like limiting people's ability to like practice their religion inside this mosque, which I mean, you could have lots of opinions about that too, right? Like, because Israel's done a really good job of bringing the COVID rates down. So it's things like that like help bring the COVID rates down. But as we see in America too, there's a lot of like, well, my, religious freedoms, I need to practice my religion. So like that's already tension happening, right? So then people are going into the mosques to celebrate Ramadan. And then I guess at one point there was a claim that some Palestinians came out and threw like bottles and things at the Israeli police department.
Rocks and things.
Yeah. So then the Israeli police were sort of fighting back. Retaliating. Yeah. And again, they have better equipment than the Palestinians. So then that caused some casualties. And there was casualties from, some Israeli policemen died too. I think it was like 17 or something died. But then it was like, well, then the next night the police came back and then they like raided the mosque and then just like just took a lot of people out in that attack, which was like, well, was that warranted? This is where it's like that kind of like those kind of moves that increases the tension. And then also you're kind of attacking people that are defenseless, especially if it's a police force. And we know from over here in the United States, when we've been talking about police brutality, like this is, is there an egging on also from like the Israeli police departments and stuff? So like, this is the kind of like, antagonism that has been, that they're saying is happening. And then Israel also took down that media building in one of Hamas's media buildings. And they're saying that one of the reasons for that is that then they can't let the world know really what's going on. So there's like a silencing. So, there's these like things that just start to pile up and you're like, what is this? And, and it's hard for America because Israel we have been allies. So there's been this sort of like movement of like, oh, we just support them no matter what. But I think we need to start like, this is really complicated.
But also I feel weird being like, we know better. And that has been an American, ideal across the globe, that we're a superpower and that, we know best. Right. Which that is not true.
No. And
also like the fear of them blowing each other up and affecting the rest of the world too. It's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah. And maintaining, because that whole area, there's like, it's sort of the peace negotiations, and not just between Israel and Palestine, but like that whole area is kind of precarious.
Egypt and Jordan. And
and really, Syria and everything that's going on.
Right.
So like, I don't envy Biden right now.
Oh my God. But my hot take is thank God that Biden is in office and not Trump right now.
Honestly, if Trump was in office, the Palestinians would be doomed.
Yeah.
They're not in great shape right now, but I do think that like just in terms of like ethics, right? So like that's where also the United States needs to step in. It's like there are certain things like, and this is where what Trevor Noah was saying I think comes into play, which is that like it's one thing to defend yourself from rockets being shot into your area. It's another thing to just be like that is an act of like, oh, we're just going to take you out. We've just decided now.
Right.
Like, and that's where it really is war. And it's like, they just don't, if there's no control there, then that's not just like a defense. That's like an act of war. So that's where America has to kind of be like, do we want to see the Palestinians decimated now? Like, that's not what we want. Nobody wants that. So, but this is very complicated. And it's interesting. I have some Israeli friends that I've not talked to them about this because I know it's really, there's probably stuff too. It's like, I've never lived in Israel. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what the things.
We only have the information that's provided through the media, basically.
Absolutely.
So,
but that's another thing I just kind of wanted to say about like this whole situation is that just be like mindful of like number one, where you're getting your information from, how you're getting it. Don't jump on any one bandwagon without maybe like looking in. If you're going to like be active in this, really like look into what's going on, because I think that on both, you know, there's an anti-Semitic side, like do not go down that road. But then also, you know, be aware, don't just blindly, you know, stand behind Israel, because, and just also be mindful too that the Israeli government is not necessarily the Israeli people, you know? And we know that from like Trump, right? Like Trump is doing shit and the people are like Americans, and you're like, well, not me, you know?
Right.
So that's definitely part of what's happening here too.
Yeah. And just be careful. I think I've seen so many people sharing things on Instagram. It seems again like, you know, the black square or the, you know, something trendy or something. But just
right.
This is not a trendy news topic or, you know, a stance or whatever. These are people on both sides, innocent people on both sides are being killed.
Right.
So that's really what, I mean, I'm more confused now, I think, because of knowing the history of everything. And I mean, it's a really, really, really complicated situation, but I do think it's important that people educate themselves, because this is not going away, and I fear it's going to get even worse. And and maybe we will have to step in, or the UN definitely, or our allies. And
I mean, we're going to have to take some sort of a side, because it's just it's not possible for us to not.
Right.
And I think that at the end of the day, like if there's a group of people that's being persecuted, that's not acceptable. You know, and if it's our allies that are doing the persecuting, we got to have a reckoning there, you know?
Right.
That's one thing that's also fascinating to me, is that like so you could say the Israeli government is persecuting, well, and I think rightfully so, that the Israeli government is persecuting the Palestinians in the area. What's funny about this is that the same people that are persecuting the minority in the United States, like the sort of white supremacists, they're the first to be like, fuck the Jewish, you know what I mean? The Jewish people look at them, they're like so hateful and they're killing all these people. So like there's like this weird, like, I'm like, yeah, but you're mad at the people that are doing the persecution, but you are the persecutor in your own land. So it's like, just be careful that, like, just acknowledge that, like, there's just a lot of hypocrisy happening too, on top of everything else.
Well, I want to say thank you to you for letting us do this episode, because it wasn't my idea, but I think it is important.
I mean, and I don't know, this might be a huge mistake. People might be like really upset, and we very well could have said things that are extremely inflammatory without even knowing it. I mean, that's one thing about this. It's like just really
But you have to have these conversations, though. These are difficult conversations, and just trying to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
I think we have to also, like, if we're going to have an opinion, we have to be as educated as we possibly can be. And that means we have to listen to everybody's, perspectives. And it doesn't matter, you know, I don't know. Because human life is the most important thing in the world. I mean, not in the world. I mean, I mean, like, as far as us as humans, our human lives, our individual human lives are valuable. And that's, we have to, you know, if America is what it says it is, which it's not, by the way, spoiler alert, then we're supposed to be defending people's rights and defend across the world. Like, that's sort of what America said it was supposed to do. We don't really ever do that. But if we want to really start moving towards that direction, then we have to kind of, you know, have some tough, you know, but I don't know. There's no solution. I really don't know.
Yeah.
This is why, no one should be religious. I don't know. That's probably not a good answer either. It's just so sad when, like, and we see it, and it's happening all over the globe right now too, the nationalism, where it's like people just want to be so us versus them.
Right.
It's not us versus them. It's us. It's us. That's it.
Right.
And until the aliens come down. Exactly.
Yeah. Until the aliens.
We may not. But honestly, the alien at this point after
the
COVID,
aliens will unite us. Hopefully.
I mean, that would be great. But if
That's
they
what they
don't,
say.
we're like dead in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't actually have any faith that like humanity is actually going to come together. in
We'll
a way
come
that we
together
should.
and fight off aliens.
No, we did. Well, that's what COVID was.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Look how
already
that
like,
turned
look,
out.
yeah, not good. And there's all these other countries that are like, not surprisingly, America's like, no, we don't want to share our vaccine codes and, our
Right.
vaccine.
Our
you know,
patents
and
and
thank
stuff,
God Biden started moving a little bit towards that. But like, of course, the companies are like, no.
Right.
It's like, well, and then, at the end of the day, that fucks all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because if COVID is anywhere, then then it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, really, really tamped down everywhere.
Yeah.
And
And want to
that's
get rid
like-
of COVID so the whole world can go to a strip club.
Yes. Why can't we all just collectively go to a strip club together and enjoy ourselves? Hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Oh, God, you guys.
Go to Deja Vu together.
Yes. Oh, my God. Strippers make so much money.
I know. Well, that's one thing I was trying to pitch yesterday to investors. And when I say investors, just like friends of mine at the pool.
Is this like your parents or something?
Yeah.
Mom, Dad, listen.
But there needs to be male strip clubs here. There's like male. I really couldn't find any. And I thought, man, that would be also like
I'm actually
just co-ed.
shocked.
I think that there was one, we couldn't even find it. Legends, I don't know. Couldn't find it.
But there's so many bachelor parties.
The gentlemen
Bachelorette.
clubs are very popular here with ladies. So I'm like, we need, Katy, do you want to send me some money? I got $500 offered to me yesterday to invest. So
I'll give you 10.
if you guys listen, if you're listening, I want to start a male strip club here in Nashville. It could also be a comedy club,
It's comedy and stripping.
Call me.
Yeah.
Call me if you're interested, folks.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, slowly spreading peace on earth.
Yeah.
One
Strip club at a time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, love each other.
I know. Yeah.
Be nice to each other. Understand that we're all just little humans on this little silly marble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for listening, you guys. If you do have opinions on this, we really would love to hear it. difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
If you want to invest in the strip club, you can email us there too.
Absolutely. If we said something horrifyingly wrong, then please let us know so we can update it.
Yes, please. Really.
We'd love to be wrong. It's our motto.
But I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah.
Tell us to our face. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for listening. This has been highly educational.
Yeah.